Well, one of the strategies we used to manage risk in the program was to try to bring on board as many partners as we could. We knew we wanted more than one. If we could have had 3 or 4, that would have been great. Our VC consultant, told us that, typically in Silicon Valley, you might get 1 out of 10 companies survive in bringing a new product to market. So those weren't real promising odds, but we knew if we had more than one, that would be a good risk mitigation strategy. We also knew that we couldn't become completely dependent on these companies' success. There had to be some tolerance for failure. I think that was a very important early formulation concept, that we had to accept some risk tolerance of failure here. Early on, this was a backup option. NASA had the ability to design our own vehicles to service the space station after the shuttle, and in fact, we had requirements to do so. So this was a backup option, and I think that was really important. I'm not sure how much traction we would have got if we would have been completely dependent on the success of these companies with such a limited amount of funding. But that idea of being a backup option, I think, really helped us. And it's probably one of the initial conditions that are really important for setting up future partnerships in models like this. So having multiple partners helps mitigate that risk. And in the case where partners are just not succeeding, not meeting the milestones, we needed to be able to quickly terminate the agreement. And in the case of Rockefeller and Kistler, we were able to turn it around, and within 4 months, we had completely recompeted and brought the second partner on board with no more money. We just used the remaining funding we have from those milestone payments and applied it to our new partner. But we were able to make that decision quickly because we had carefully planned the milestones in the agreement, and then when they were not being met, we swiftly terminated, and then were able to recompete. COTS was certainly a different way of doing business. You hear that a lot, and I think some of the distinguishing features of that has to do with, first of all, having this some tolerance for risk and risk of failure. That's important, that to have a backup. People ask me, what's the next cost? Why can't we do this again? What are we doing? Well, we had a lot of initial conditions that were just right for a program like this. Started out as a backup option, investing instead of defining, specifications for a need. If we had the need, legally, we were advised to write requirements and issue a contract, compete for a traditional contract. Well, that's not what we were doing. We set 3 objectives. First was to strategically invest government funds into the stimulation of the commercial space industry. So that was for public purpose. That was broader than just meeting a NASA need. We were looking at the broad public purpose of creating a new space economy, helping develop that new space economy. That was the first objective. The second was to take those strategic investments and apply them toward the demonstration of specific space transportation capabilities with the goal of achieving cost-effective, safe, and reliable space transportation services. And then the third was to create a market environment for NASA and other customers. So we put those 3 things together, and that is different than just writing a set of specifications to meet a NASA need. We had much broader purpose, much bigger goals. So with that framework, we were able to use take advantage of some of the features of the Space Act Agreement, and this is different for NASA because NASA is not accustomed to failing. In fact, given enough time and money, NASA will succeed at everything we do. So this took a little different thinking, and it was important to break away from some of that traditional approaches. In fact, to the point where when we were starting up the program, we were off-site. We were outside the gates of the Johnson Space Center, and we had our own offices. And as we learned in the Innovator's Dilemma, I mean, some of the best thinking leads to great success. But when we're doing something disruptive, something different, a new way, then you have to break away from some of those standard practices and be able to think a little more outside the box.